What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about Lucid. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause some volatility in the stock price, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So starting off, when it comes down to some macro data, we have a lot of big ones. It is a shorter week, so Monday is a holiday. So kicking off on Tuesday, we have ISM manufacturing, a lot of Fed speakers as well throughout the week. So that in among itself could cause a certain level of volatility, but a lot of the data that is going to be coming out is from August. So on Tuesday, like I said, ISM manufacturing, you do have a lot of as well labor data. So JOLT numbers, that's coming out on Wednesday, ADP employment on Thursday, ISM services from August. So August data or report, that's going to be at 9 a.m. And then on Friday, non-farm payroll and unemployment. Going into this upcoming week, you do have a 86.4% likelihood of a 25 basis point cut for the upcoming September 17th meeting. And as of right now, the market, in my opinion, has priced in that to actually happen. So with all that labor data coming out, that's one thing that Powell has really stated. That's kind of his kryptonite. That's something that he's really watching for. So as bad as it sounds, if a lot of this data that does come out, such as unemployment, comes in very positive, then you will actually see the market start to price out this 25 basis point cut. And that would really affect the broader market, growth stocks, and even the EV market, right? Because EVs are very sensitive to interest rates. So when it comes down to it, that is going to cause a whole level of volatility. These are some of the companies unveiling their earnings. Potentially could move the market, some of them, such as Broadcom, but in my opinion, not so much. But I think Lucid is going to have its own set of problems. So in case you do not know, as of Tuesday, it will be essentially trading at 1980, give or take. But yeah, they're going to be doing that 1-4-10 reverse stock split. So that will be affecting options. That's going to be affecting everything. So I think up for debate is what comes next. On a technical standpoint, things like this is the bottom. This is why on my video on Friday I said, hey, is this essentially the bottom? But I feel like with the whole reverse stock split, like a lot of people just do not understand why. And it's kind of funny how things are on social media. You have a lot of people trying to explain what a reverse stock split is. I don't think people question that. People are questioning why. Like, that's the $1 million question. Why? And so ultimately, like I've alluded in previous videos, if Lucid does not put out any concrete information, like in the first half of this week on some new investor getting in, anticipate Lucid to go down at least 10% throughout the week. That's just my own opinion, of course. I could be very much wrong, but by that occurring, that would be really breaking it. And one thing I started to look at, so I'll quickly move my face so you guys can see it. So this right here does kind of show the market position. So it shows kind of strong walls of selling, vice versa of buying. And that's one thing that Lucid has really been having trouble with. And this is why at the same time I always get comments like, why is shorts that big of a deal for Lucid? And that is because there is no buyers. So even looking way back in July when it was starting to spike, you saw a pretty wide gap, but then you did see a lot of walls of kind of selling, and it just like massively doubled, tripled down. So there has never been that level of like good concrete buying that's been happening. So it's just a very unfortunate like scenario. And even more so on Friday, this is what we are going into next week with. It's extremely negative, probably the most negative it's ever been in the time I've actually been covering Lucid. And even in fact, if you look down here, the profit ratio, so the amount of options that are actually in the money, so people are actually making money right now, is only 10.13%. That is extremely bearish. So I get it. A lot of people want to be optimistic on their investment, but I think Lucid really does need to put out some actual explanation, concrete explanation on why like what the hell is happening and why they're doing the reverse stock split. Because like I said, I completely disagree with Mark on why they are doing the reverse stock split, because doing like a reverse stock split to get out a penny stock status won't change anything. That's just kind of putting lipstick on a pig. It won't make any difference whatsoever. It's still a damn pig. No pun intended or whatever. But like I said, I really do like Lucid. I like their vehicles, but it's been riddled with so many problems. So I think this upcoming week, you're going to see quite a lot of volatility. And one thing as well I wanted to bring up is looking at the options. So you can kind of analyze a little bit the volatility. And one common thing that you can kind of see is that every time it does spike over roughly 100% for the volatility, again, for those of you that are familiar with options, you kind of know that's ultimately how expensive buying is. So usually at those times, it's kind of advantageous to sell either puts or calls. But at the end of the day, like, this is like, there's going to be no premiums. So ultimately with the new chain that's going to be probably out on Thursday, in my opinion, if not early Friday, you're going to see very low premiums. So nobody's really like, there won't be as much activity as a lot of people would really ideally like. I think there's going to be a hell of a lot of puts being purchased because people are assuming that dilution is coming, and potentially it could. I do feel tail end of Q3 going into Q4, which is going to be pretty much September/October, maybe even going into kind of November-ish. That's when they will be needing between about $1.5 to $2 billion of funding. So it's just a very unfortunate kind of chain of events that is happening. And so this upcoming week, you are going to really get kind of the most of that volatility. So if you do believe in Lucid, have at it, buy the dip, do what you need to do. But going into this upcoming week, even on Friday, shorts freed up some room because, in my opinion, quickly going over here, there was somewhat limited supply. So going into right now, this week, there's 1.1 million shares available to be shorted. So there's always been that limited supply. And so this is why I do feel on Friday, shorts returned 5.16 million just to add some additional room. So anticipate shorts come Tuesday and onwards, them to really double down. So going into this week, 29.94% of the free float's being shorted, works to be 375.84 million shares overall being shorted. Cost per average 18.01, DTC 2.9 days, utilization 98.97. So I think just going into this week, it's I'd love to be optimistic, and hopefully Lucid does actually have something in your back pocket to actually surprise the broader market and really push higher and prompt some buying. But you can't really invest on hope. You need concrete data. And unfortunately, in Lucid's case, things aren't really there for kind of to validate anything. And of course, come next week as well, that website will show the sales of Lucid that did occur in August, but as what Mark mentioned, it was wrong. So I don't know if that will be a good catalyst or not, or even if it will show any gravities. But yeah, I think all in all, it'll be a very interesting week. So for those of you that plan on doing options, what are you going to be doing? Are you going to be buying more? And if so, where would you be potentially buying? One thing to take note of though, is from Friday, you do see kind of the bulls feeling like it'll be roughly around that 2 to 250. And so of course, take that times by 10. That'll give you a good kind of estimate on where the bulls feel like it will be. And then the bears are anticipating for it to be sub $2. Again, AKA sub $20. So there's not really much activity, but once we do have more chains, it'll kind of open it up, and then we can kind of analyze that a little bit further. But as far as some support and resistance points, again, if you're wanting to average down or whatever else, with it closing at $1.98, it is below this S1, so $1.99 and then $1.93. That's going to be the next strong support and resistance points, followed by 183, and so that is going to be, of course, 1830. So at the end of the day, like I said, I do feel like there will be most likely a good 10% pullback that does occur this week. but potentially from there it should kind of move higher again, hopefully best case scenario. And that's not even factoring in a lot of the data that I did mention first thing. So a lot of this labor data, if it actually does come in positive, as stupid as it sounds, that might negatively impact the broader market and as well through that Lucid. So let me know your thoughts. Where do you see things going? Throw your price predictions in the comments below. And potentially, where would you be buying more? I know in the past I did mention that I'd be buying between that $1.80 and $1.90 range, but in all honesty, I probably would be lowering that a little bit more to about equivalently $16. But still, that's not me FOMOing in or YOLOing or whatever the hell you want to call it. That's just small dollar cost average, and then potentially enough that I can actually just sell some covered calls based on that, but still nothing overly significant. So let me know your viewpoint on that and where you see things going. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. If you are looking for some solid buy signals though, pop over to my Patreon and give buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point and bangers. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.